we at Delta Data have been supportive of the collective investment trust products, and today we think one of the industry support of these assets in the retirement record keeping and asset management business. Our history with collective investment trust started about 13 years ago, maybe 12 years ago. We fund-to-fund engine for our record clients who used our trading system to rebalance fund-to-funds. And the first application, business application of that fund-to-fund technology that really took hold was rebalancing target date funds that were on collective investment trust chassis. Today, it's hard to exactly put our finger on how much, but we think somewhere around $300 billion in assets that are held in collectives are actively traded on our platform. In addition to that, we have an active and large group of clients who are asset managers in the industry, and we provide transparency solution to asset managers, and we also provide communication solutions for them to communicate with counterparties who they jointly sell the products with. So as this coalition started to take form a few years ago, we decided we should really get involved with the coalition, try and help at a high level the coalition gain some traction in the industry and cohesion around the direction that the industry wanted to go. And we'll spend a few minutes talking about what that support means and what we've done to date to illustrate where we are today and where we're going. We started work initially with our clients and a few of our prospects who were active in the Collective Investment Trust Coalition and took guidance from them on what they thought the coalition could benefit from if we were to provide some resources, not directly to the coalition, but just in the areas that we focus on as a firm. And we, working with members who are clients, decided that probably the best way that we could support this initiative or set of initiatives was to host some information gathering sessions and to document kind of a current state. So we really looked at this as kind of a consulting exercise that we were going to do on behalf of an industry to not only learn ourselves about what's going on, but to help the industry understand where are we now and where do we want to go. So about 18 months ago, we had about 6 firms represented by 10 people come down to Columbus, all of them members of the coalition, and we spent 2 days working through what are the products we're trying to support, what are all the artifacts that go into supporting them, what are the key data points that go into these products, what are the changes through the life cycle of the product that it undergoes, and then what is the current state of support of all of those items we just discussed. So what came out of that meeting was a pretty well documented data dictionary, which is a group of data points that define these products as we understood them. There's no standardization. It's just here's data points as we understood them. A set of about 15 business processes that we identified that are consistent across all of the different types of players, if you will, or counterparties in the industry. Importantly, we defined the types of firms that are engaged in this activity. There's vastly different requirements for an asset manager, a pure play asset manager versus a pure play trust company versus a company that does both in-house. And then we also have service partners whereby you have for-hire trust services that are engaged in these activities. And then lastly, you have the consultants, the record keepers. So we identified kind of the stakeholders and what was important to each of the stakeholders. But we did come up with this list of 15 some odd business processes that are intertwined between all of these stakeholders. Some of those business processes are more important or currently a larger pain point than others. Some of the business processes don't apply to all of these stakeholders that we're discussing. But we took this data dictionary, we took this list of identified business processes, We then looked at the documentation that supports collective investment trust and built a catalog of document types. And we roughed out what we think is kind of a baseline starting point. It's by no means an exhaustive analysis of the industry, but it's a pretty good place to start. And we took all that analysis and pushed it back out to all the attendees who helped us put it together. This really was not designed to be a, hey, let's build it and keep it and try and leverage it. It was really just a facilitation of an information gathering and organization exercise. Again, that was about 18 months ago. So the follow-on to that meeting was we took those 15 business processes and we worked with those folks who came down and worked with us to collect the information, and we prioritized it based on the type of firm they were. And what we found was, regardless of what type of firm they were, bank, trust, record keeper, or asset manager, there was some consistency in where the top pain points were. So we went back out to all of our clients that we knew worked in collectives, and we said, hey, we think we should tackle some of these in the top 10 and provide some solutions to help facilitate these business processes. And lo and behold, 2 of our clients called back and said, that's a great idea. So the follow from that was to work with 2 of our existing clients. One's a top 5 record keeper, the other one's a top 5 asset manager. They're engaged today with these exact conversations. And importantly, they already use software that we thought could support communication of these business processes. And what we're going to talk about today, and actually do a bit of a live demo, is the resultant initial business process changes that were identified as pain points in that offsite that are now in production, in usage between 2 of the coalition members who are also clients of ours. And then after that brief demo, we're going to talk about where we're going from here, how you guys can participate, and what's next. I'm going to hand this off to Jason Davenport. He's the head of product for the tool that supports these communications, and he'll take it from here.
Thanks, Whitfield. So, as Whitfield said, what I do is kind of walk through our FundBlast module here at Delta Data, which is where we kind of house all of our counterparty management and analytics and reporting. And the reason we kind of chose this product set is really because of that counterparty management suite. It already had the ability to model relationships, stakeholders, plans, and everyone that needs to be involved in a CIT into one portal and be able to share and kind of dissect information around to what's relevant to those different stakeholders. The first area that we really heard kind of a pain point from some of our clients and with the coalition was getting everybody on the same page with just what are the active documents and who are the contacts and what are the things that are going on with the actual product itself. So what we built here is just kind of a quick product CIT where each stakeholder within the product has the ability to log in and actually see the relevant information to them. You get information about, who the trust company is, who the record keeper is. Up in the top right or even in the bottom left down here, what are some of the key events that are taking place around the CIT? Is there a rebalance modification coming? Is there a glide path update, et cetera? And we really see this kind of being a place where you can come into and get a quick look at the product all the way from product launch all the way down to when the actual fund is liquidating. So another thing that was talked about at length during the on-site meetings here was just transparency data and getting kind of your arms around not only just what are the assets in general, but what are the plans that are included, all the way down to more compliance and legal ramifications of what plans are included and do we have an active agreement. So being able to have a portal to store all of the active plan agreements, as well as break out some of the reporting to show you, in this case, here are 4 plans that make up these percentage of assets. And you can see this last one actually, someone snuck in without an actual plan agreement. So being able to constantly get alerts and notifications around not only the full asset of the actual fund, but who all is involved and who all makes up the assets in total. One of the next things that we heard a lot about was when changes are made or corporate actions or fund changes are made to a CIT, making sure all the relevant stakeholders are involved in getting that. That's exactly what our FundBlast module is designed to do. And by just clicking open a new activity, you get to a place where we have structured about 50 or so event types, about 7 or 8 of them kind of directed exactly at CITs. But this could take anything from a merger, a liquidation, a name change. And in this case, we just have maybe something overall within the Declaration of Trust is being updated.
So Jason, we should stop there. This section that we're about to walk through was what we worked with 2 of our clients to define what data points did they want to show, what steps go into creating the notification, what information shared, how do you tie what documents should be tied to it. And we're hoping that this is the kind of initial foothold whereby people can start to see how the next set of events are modeled. And we'll work with essentially the coalition to broaden the scope of this. Right now, we have 2 large clients driving it because that's who's using it. But this call is to encourage more participation in the modeling of this stuff so that we can hand this off to you as the industry, because it's really not for us to decide this. We're just providing the tools that will support it, and the more people that can add input, the better it will be.
So in this case, we have an event name, just a Declaration of Trust update, and then we have 2 dates that kind of really drive the overall communication of this event. The publish date, which is the day that we're going to let all of the stakeholders know about the event that's taking place, and then the effective date, which is the actual day it becomes effective. What's important here is that there's 2 ways, and we'll talk through this as we go through the workflow, this event can go out the door. One, other stakeholders, other companies, the asset manager, the record keeper could all be part of this portal and receive this digitally in more of a consumable format. But what we didn't want to do is have that be the only recipients of these. So we have a step in step 5 called external communication, where you can actually draft emails to all the contacts that you're loading in the system, and this will send these out on publish date to them as well. And then we'll show some of the tracking capabilities around that. So the end goal here is to create events that are pertinent to the actual fund, any changes that are taking place, and making sure that all stakeholders are receiving the exact same information in a timely manner. The next step in the process after step 1 is what products are affected by this. In this case, we were already on a product page and we knew the stakeholders involved. We knew exactly what product was affected. So it filtered it down to this one list. However, if you were starting this from scratch, what we would do is load all of the CITs in your inventory or your book of business and give you the ability to come out here and select one-to-many QSIPs or models or products to actually tie to the overall event change. Step 3 is kind of where the first really step of work is done in regards to, based off the event type that you select, we're going to ask you certain things that could take place. So if it's a liquidation or a merger, we may ask you some purchase eligibility changes, the date, the go-to QSIPs and things like that. In this case, for a Declaration of Trust update, we're really just trying to define what are the different sections of the Declaration of Trust that are possibly being updated. We'll give you a step later where you can actually attach the new document, but this is hopefully to give the end user a look that not only when they receive the document, they can quickly say, okay, here are the areas that are actually changing, and here's what we should probably pay attention to based on the newest version. The target audience is who do we want to send this to? And this is at the stakeholder level. So what you'll see on this page is a list of all the different relationships that you have. But in this case, this product only affects Reliance Trust and Empower. So these are the only 2 selected. If you wanted to communicate this with everyone that you have a current relationship with, other asset managers, other record keepers, you could always select everyone. But in this case, we filtered it down to just those that know or care about the CIT product. You'll also get another indicator here with this little logo next to Reliance Trust, which firms or which stakeholders actually take part in the portal as well. And that drives not only what kind of data you can receive back from them, but how that communication will go out the door to them. So when we first went live with FundBlast, one of the main things we heard from some of the beta clients from just an asset management space was we don't want this to be something we have to do just for clients of yours that are going to consume the data. We want to be able to put all of our stakeholder communications in here and this send out to everybody we have a relationship with. So that's where we added this next step, step 5. And this really lets you come out here and actually create groups of contact lists, back office communications, front office communications. Filter not only the target audience of who you want to send this to, but then the contacts of who should receive these changes. It lets you draft the email body, attach documents to that email, even attach digital formats of what we've already built in the tool. So everything that you entered in up until this point can be spit out and put into the email in more of a digital consumable Excel file. Once you draft everything in that email, we can get a quick look here at what that actual email looks like. So when we actually click submit for approval and all the approvals are met, we will actually send this email out, attaching the declaration of trust or whatever document that you wanted to attach to it, putting in the verbiage or the text that you had on that last configuration page, and even add in links that they can actually confirm that someone did receive this, and we can start tracking the status of the emails that went out the door. And that's really kind of where we get to the last step. The summary steps really all going to be defined by what the status is of the current corporate action. In this case, it's published pending effective date. And we have a couple different groups of things we can take a look at. One, activities. For people that do receive this either via email or in the portal itself, they can actually open questions or things that they may need to ask you in relation to the corporate action. And this lets you track those activities. And in this case, they just want to say, they just have a follow-up question. It lets you go in, assign those to people, work those, and actually send them digitally back to the person that actually sent the request in. And then down at the bottom, in this case, we had 4 people we sent this to, 2 at Empower and 2 at Reliance Trust in this case. We can see who those emails went to, and we even get a status. Was it sent? Was it sent and read? And we also track bounce backs or invalid email addresses. So we'll constantly update the contacts to tell you, this went to 5 people, but 2 of them we received a bounce back from. These are updated based off the fact that they click on that confirm receipt. But we also give users the ability to come in and edit this. If you know, for instance, in this case that Eric did open it, maybe he calls you about a question, you can actually come out here and mark it sent and read as well. There is another status field over here that we're currently working on, and that will involve actually telling you where the firm is in regards to being ready for the change. So within that email, we'll also put links and other things to say confirm that you've actually made changes to your platforms or whatever updates that you need to make in your agreements. And then they can confirm back it's in review or this is completed and we're completely ready for this change to, in this case, the declaration of trust. So the end goal here is just one communication message that's built in this workflow, sent out, and then tracked on all the responses and how that actually went out the door.
So, Jason, that was very helpful, and thanks for succinctly walking through it. This email, the result of this is this email that goes out to all of the stakeholders. And what this tool tries to do is allow you to build a workflow that fits your firm. This is a generic workflow we built for this demo. Some of our firms have 10, 12 steps as part of this workflow or approvals steps that go into this workflow. What we just walked through were changes to declarations of trust. There are about 6 specific event types that we are using in production. I don't really want to call it a beta because we kind of built how they saw it and they're using it, and it seems to be going well. As y'all know, there's not a ton of these changes, so we don't have a ton of feedback on it just yet, but we are starting to look at what's next. And again, the encouragement is that you guys call us and get engaged and want to be part of where this thing goes, because the next set of events we tackle behind this is going to be based on the feedback we receive and where those who are using the tool want to go with it. And importantly, if you're part of the conversation but not using the tool, we'll equally be interested in and respect your opinion. If you're a member of the coalition and have input, but you can't use the tool this year for whatever reason, we still encourage you guys to be engaged in the conversation. And all input's valid and welcome. So as this evolves out of these first 6 use cases, your involvement will be seen in the tool as it evolves. So we think that the 2 firms that are in production right now is about to turn into 6. There are other firms that are counterparties to these 2 firms that have been made aware of their desire to use this for these types of changes and are in the middle of the contractual steps. The reason I say contractual steps is regardless of the cost, which if you're just providing data to the platform is free, it's sensitive information. So most of the firms who are members of the coalition are going to require a contract even if it's free. So that takes a little bit of time, and as this evolves, we're already looking at what's next. So this is a simple, in our opinion, a simple set of requirements whereby in our document vault, which tracks document types by specific, we know what a declaration of trust is, and we know who the counterparties are to it, and we can track the versioning of it, and you can share that one document amongst your stakeholders for a specific product. The next thing we're going to walk through is kind of the next step. And the next step is tackling one of the harder use cases that we documented in the offsite last year. And that was 2 we're actually going to talk through. One is adding a new plan to an existing collective investment trust. And then the second is creating a new collective investment trust and bringing your stakeholders together in a combined workflow to really reduce the time and to increase the auditability of the different steps that go into delivering a new collective investment trust. So we'll walk through that just so you can get a feel of the flexibility of the tool as well as the power of bringing your stakeholders into a single spot and agreeing to the different steps that are required to get agreement on to get a new product in or out the door or a new plan onto an existing product.
Yeah, and with this workflow, and you'll see it's just very similar to the one we looked at before, and as Whitfield said, we can configure each workflow or each event type to its own separate, unique instance of this. But in this case, we're just adding a plan to an existing product that we have in our inventory. The first step really is identifying the plan, but also making sure we have all of our documents up to date. Do we have the plan agreement? Do we have an AML policy, a KYC policy, et cetera? And these documents are not only just loaded into here, they could be sent through an approval process so that you could bring your legal, your marketing, and your product teams in here as well, so to make sure that they're on board. These are, again, in an active status currently, but they could be sitting here pending review, and kind of in a slight approval process, you can define who among your stakeholders or just who internally needs to come out here and kind of make sure all the documents are up to date and good. Once the documents are then ready, you get into more some of the counterparty or the attributes about the product and the plan. Again, defining the stakeholders into here. We can define those within here in a drop-down list. So we are loading the 5,500 data into here for plan information. Who will the sub-advisor, the record keeper, and everything be? All the way down to who are the key contacts? Do we have an administrator, the plan consultant? Do we have someone we need to talk to for trading questions or making sure trading platforms are up to date? So these are all just steps along the way to make sure you have everything in order to fully onboard the plan. Step 4 is around control objectives, and that's just kind of a loose term that we use around, think of it more of a checklist. And in here we can say, do we have an updated AML policy? Do we have a know your client policy? Are all of our plan contacts up to date? So do we have all the contacts we need so that when we go to production, if there are any issues, we know who to get with? And then again, do we have signed plan documents? And these can be updated and set to different statuses along the way so that as you're going through this onboarding period, anyone can log into here and actually get a quick view-only access to say, here's where we are, we're 80% complete, 75% complete, et cetera, on getting a new plan up and running on a book of business. Similar to that same process, we have the ability to walk through let me unfilter that, a new product onboarding. And what we've done here is really tried to get into more of a cloning feature so that as you're starting to onboard more and more or create more and more CITs, a lot of the documents and different things may look the same. You're just changing stakeholders or changing certain information about the documents. So what we're doing in here is a little of artificial intelligence where you can clone an existing product. We bring over all the documents that are tied to that, the declaration of trust, maybe some type of plan agreement or or custodial agreement. And then we start updating some of the keywords and templates in there as you're defining new stakeholders and new items in there. And again, in this case, the control objectives, instead of more of a new plan onboarding checklist, you're really getting into how do we onboard new products and what are the things that we have to make sure are up to date and in our inventory before this thing can really go live. The last piece in here, and you'll notice this is in an oversight category, and this was something that was actually one of the pain points or something that was mentioned in the coalition meeting, was then being able to perform annual due diligence or attestations against the plans or any of the stakeholders involved. So if you're the sub-advisor and you want to make sure that the record keepers are playing by all the rules and by the perspectives, this is where you can start taking in whether it's AE16s, SOC 1s, FICA documents. The same workflow applies where you can start monitoring all the different areas of focus and control objectives that you would in more of a regular intermediary oversight program.
So Jason, I think we should stop there. We've gone through a lot, and just talk a little bit about what our vision is. If you were to use this tool and we were to prime this tool with your existing book of business and the plans that you support, the next time you add a plan or the next time you model a new product, not only can we reduce the amount of time that takes by sending the emails with the corrected documents attached to the correct stakeholders in real time, but once you model in, here's the next plan on the platform, that's where our analytics can start looking at transparency data and confirming that that plan is trading through the record keeper that you thought it was going to be trading through. And then it can also say we're seeing activity from a record keeper for a plan that was not modeled to this. And then you can go in and either repair that and illustrate that, yes, it is, or it is now an oversight function to chase down why there's a plan that has activity that was not expected. But then in our annual event type, you can say, I'm going to get attestations from all of our sponsors through our consultant. And by selecting a series of products, maybe filtered by one consultant, then you can say, all right, these 35 plans via this consultant, we're going to attach a PDF attestation, and then FundBlast will send that out to both the consultant and all the plans saying, please fill this out. They can email that email address directly back with the filled out form, and then it queues it up as an oversight workflow to go through and verify, yes, they filled out the form, now we have it on file, and that document is now attached to that plan, consultant, product combination forever for audit purposes. So the vision we have is that you can model your current book of business. You can ask the tool to always look at the transparency data. The tool is its own housing for this transparency data, whether you give it to us direct in an Excel file or we're getting it via something like OmniServe or direct from the record keepers. And to help you with some of the menial tasks, if you will, the manual tasks that are inherent in these products. We would like to automate a lot of them, and the communications is simply the control point where a lot of these non-automatic processes cause the most pain. So, we talked a little bit about how the first firms are using some of the most simple event types. And then we talked through what are some of the more complex event types like new plan onboarding or new product rollout that we know we can support. And our initial 2 clients are working towards usage of those. And what we're really saying is just giving you a flavor of what our vision is for support of this industry. We understand it's going to take years, but we've been around 35 years. We plan to be around a lot more. And we know that with better participation from the industry, this will be a great thing. We're not saying we're too far down the road yet, but it is encouraging to have some production usage. And the follow-up to this meeting, we're going to send out to all the attendees as well as to all the coalition members an invite. And we're going to have a follow-up kind of off-site session where we spend another day and a half doing an even deeper dive on the remaining use cases and possibly revalidate some of the questions and kind of data dictionary points we weren't 100% on from the last meeting. And I think what comes out of that is going to be more usage, and hopefully we'll be on a WebEx this time next year talking about who's using the more advanced stuff and how annual attestations went for those who tried it, and then what's next from there. Anything you want to add, Jason?
No, I think that's it. We appreciate everybody's time.
Great.
Yes.
Does anybody from the coalition want to add anything? Well, we encourage you to reach out to us direct if anything on this call has piqued your interest, or if you want a copy of kind of the initial stuff that we documented from the first session to kind of understand what's the baseline that we're working with today. Or if you just want to talk about exactly how it's being used and the feedback we've received so far, any of that is great discussion, and we'd love to talk to you about it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.